Hey guys, Britt here. Welcome to End Times Bible Prophecy. Today we're going to talk about a number of headlines, both directly and indirectly related to Bible prophecy. So let's dive right in. This first one I want to share with you is from Prophecy Newswatch. It's titled, Preparing for the Third Temple, 600 Levites Rehearse for Service. We can see a picture of that here. It says, on Thursday night, 600 Jewish men from the tribe of Levi held a rehearsal on the steps leading up to the Temple Mount to prepare to play their role in providing the musical accompaniment for the Third Temple service. And there's a video here. I'm going to share a link to this article if you want to read in depth into what they describe as what they're doing and how they want to be part of this Third Temple service. But I just don't want to get into the weeds right now. I really want to focus on these two sentences because I find the weeds often buried at the bottom. a lot of news stories are that way. It says the event was co-sponsored by the Jerusalem municipality. That is an important detail, Wander noted, who's one of the people they're interviewing for this. He says the municipal government is helping to prepare for the Third Temple. So this is, not this earth-shattering article in and of itself, but this is one of many articles that have really been cropping up more often recently, I've noticed, in regard to the Third Temple, anywhere from we're preparing for the red heifer, we're preparing vessels and instruments, and people are getting ready to build a new third temple and reinstitute temple worship in Jerusalem. Why is this important? Well, this is important because Jesus pointed out that the Antichrist will commit an act called the abomination of desolation at the midpoint of the tribulation period. He said when the act that Daniel spoke about, which was this abomination of desolation, takes place. So both Daniel and Jesus are telling us that the Antichrist will commit this abomination of desolation. For that to happen, there has to be a temple, and there has not been a temple since the year 70. So we've been pretty close to 2,000 years without a temple, and we would have to have a temple in place for that event to happen. And so we live in the season of the Lord's return right now. We're seeing so many signs that point to the nearness of his coming, the nearness of these tribulation events, and this is just one more. And that means that the second coming, which occurs at the end of the tribulation, the glorious appearing of Jesus Christ, is getting close as the tribulation is, and it also means that the rapture, which I believe happens before the tribulation, is even closer. So this is, again, something we want to keep our eye on, not because of the rebuilding of the temple itself, but because it is necessary for the events of the tribulation to play out. And these are signs that we're seeing all around us that point to the near return of Christ. So on to our next article. This is from the U.S. Sun, and it says, Dystopian Future. Spooky artificial intelligence can, quote, accurately predict the future, and it's about to be asked more questions. And again, just like with the previous article, I think the lead is buried later on. This thing does not predict the future. God is the only one that can predict the future, and he does so with 100% accuracy. Artificial intelligence does not do that now, nor will it do so in the future. However, this article is interesting for another reason, because I think that, which is what this is really pointing out. So we'll read on just a little bit more. It says, artificial intelligence was asked to predict the future and was right over 99% of the time, according to new research. Fortunately, the AI didn't predict a deadly apocalypse or a robot takeover. Instead, researchers at the Max Planck Institute for the Science of Light in Germany asked the artificially intelligent software to predict how AI progressed. They did this by feeding the AI information from academic papers dating all the way back to 1994. A total of 143,000 papers were used in the experiment. The AI was then asked to make predictions about how artificial intelligence has developed over the years based on the scientific studies it knew about. And then this article goes on to claim that it accurately foretold the direction that that artificial intelligence would take, how it would develop, and where it would be today. So why is that interesting? Well, that's interesting because I think this is a tool that's going to help lead to this exponential advance of technology as we go forward. We've talked about how these new technologies would come to fruition, and they're going to come into being not on a linear time frame, meaning step by step incrementally, but in an exponential manner. And Jesus talked about this too. Jesus talked about the time before his coming would be like birth pains, meaning they increase in frequency and intensity as the final event draws near, meaning the birth. So here, as we're awaiting the return of Christ, we would expect to see this exponential curve, and we see it in a number of things. One of those is technology. And so as what is beneficial from the standpoint of this artificial intelligence isn't predicting the future accurately, but it's helping to simulate areas where researchers might devote time and resources and tell them what would be a dead end through those simulations so that they then can focus on more optimal pathways to get to where they want to get. And so it leads to more efficient research, and again, time and money can be allocated to the paths most likely to lead to the outcomes they want. And that's going to lead to faster and faster development of all of these technologies. It's going to lead to breakthroughs and milestones being achieved at a faster scale than it otherwise would happen. I think that, again, is really what this article is pointing out. It's relevant to us, but again, like normal, like in most cases, the lead is buried somewhere down beneath, and it's not even in the headline. So on to this next story. This is from oilprice.com. It says, energy crisis exposes existential threat to Europe's industry. European industries are slammed by soaring energy costs so much that they are curtailing or shutting down production, losing global market shares, and risking permanent damage to Europe's competitiveness. We've talked about this a number of times in the past. I don't think we can talk about it enough, because I think this is going to be the event that has the greatest impact on the world, the one that we know of, the one that we know for sure is going to have the greatest impact throughout the rest of this year and well into 2023, is this energy crisis in Europe. And we're starting to see what was theoretical and what we were talking about before really starting to hit hard. It says surging natural gas and electricity costs have resulted in a jump in operational costs for all industries, from steelmaking and car manufacturing to textiles and clothing. As manufacturers are curtailing, shutting down, or relocating production, they risk never reopening in Europe again, eroding the European Union's competitiveness, including in the industries crucial for the energy transition, such as the metals sector. Europe's industry associations cautiously welcome the various EU proposals to alleviate the burden of high energy prices on businesses, but they say much more is needed to preserve the EU's competitiveness and spare the industries from closures and massive job losses. Now again, I want to point out right here, they say to alleviate the burden of high energy prices. We said this over and over again, but for some reason, the people in Europe can't get this through their heads, whether it's the heads of these industry associations or the politicians. The problem is not a burden of high energy prices. The problem is a shortfall of energy. That shortfall of energy has a symptom of higher energy prices that burden the business. But you can lower the prices, that doesn't create more energy. So again and again, these industry associations are saying, they're basically saying subsidize our energy cost so that we can remain competitive. What does that mean? That means print euros, hand them to us so that we can then buy the energy we need without it impacting the bottom line of the company. But that doesn't do a thing to create more energy. So the problem here can only be solved in one of two ways. A, you can create more energy, and then you have greater supply of energy and the price goes down. Or B, you can lower the demand for energy. When you subsidize something, you don't lower the demand for it. You keep the demand constant, or maybe you increase it. So if they print euros and hand them to these companies to buy energy, all that's going to do is make the price of energy go up again. And then they'll repeat the cycle over and over. They'll go, now the costs have gone up more. We need more euros. Oh, then the price goes up. We need more euros. That leads to hyperinflation if you continue down that path. So their two choices are, at this point, because they can't create more energy in the short time frame that they have. I haven't seen any way that this can be done. At least cheap energy that they would need. So there's only two choices. There's the industry's shut down and you have an absolute depression in Europe that spreads throughout the world, or you print the euros and you have hyperinflation and the European Union just breaks apart as all of these sovereigns, all of the nations, their debt becomes worthless. You undermine the whole global banking system. Either way, you're pretty much heading for a global financial catastrophe. But again, the problem is not high costs. The problem is a shortfall of energy that then creates high cost as a symptom. So let's read on. It says, soaring energy prices have prompted a wave of aluminum capacity cuts across Europe as smelters reel from sky-high gas and power prices, while demand remains soft due to concerns about global economic growth. Due to the high energy cost, the European metals industry in September called on the EU for emergency action to prevent a collapse of the sector, which faces an existential threat from surging power and gas prices. Again, here they are calling for bailouts, for subsidizing their costs. The fertilizer industry, and that's one we've been talking about in the past as well, is also suffering from natural gas prices 15 times the pre-crisis level, 10 times more than U.S. prices, and well above the prices in Asia, the Fertilizers Europe group says. Soaring natural gas prices are pushing electricity prices higher, and they are also hurting producers of ammonia, a key ingredient in fertilizers because natural gas is the primary feedstock for ammonia production. Globally, 98% of ammonia plants around the world use fossil fuels as a feedstock, primarily natural gas and coal. Now again, we pointed out, as these costs go up, you're uncompetitive. If you're in Europe trying to use natural gas to create fertilizer, you're not going to be able to do so in a cost-effective way to where you're competitive on a global scale. So you're forced to curtail production or shut it down entirely. Most people would say, well, fine, then these other places around the world where it's not so expensive to create the fertilizer, they can make up for that shortfall. They don't have the capacity to turn that around. Maybe 3 years down the road they do, but that's not going to help during planting season in 2023 when there's not enough fertilizer to go around. And we've talked again about the coming food crisis. It's already here in its beginning stages, just like this energy crisis is in its beginning stages in Europe, but it's only going to get worse. But the energy crisis in Europe and the food crisis around the world are only going to get worse going forward. And this is one of the reasons why. It says, due to soaring natural gas prices, Norway-based Yara, for example, has been curtailing ammonia production this year, with curtailments taking its total European ammonia capacity utilization down to around 35% as of August. With 70% of ammonia production in Europe halted since August. That's just 2 months ago. Industry seeks immediate relief measures necessary to restore production, Fertilizers Europe said in September. The gas market solutions will take time, which our industry doesn't have. The Solidarity Fund is a positive development, but its effectiveness depends on quick implementation at EU member states to ensure streamlining of available funds to the most affected sectors, such as the fertilizer industry. Again, I don't think there's anything that these legislators, these politicians can do that is going to create more energy. They can shuffle around the deck chairs on the Titanic, but it's still, the ship's still going down. Associations of energy-intensive industries, including the fertilizer industry, steel making, chemicals, ceramics, mining, glass, and paper, underline the need for more immediate and efficient measures to be put in place as we observe the crisis circumstances worsening day by day in our industries. We reiterate our call on the European leaders to urgently introduce EU-wide measures aimed at addressing the impact of natural gas prices on industrial competitiveness and measures designed to disconnect electricity prices from gas prices. Since then, the European Commission has proposed new emergency rules to tackle this energy crisis, including joint gas purchasing, price limiting mechanisms, and solidarity between EU countries in case of shortages. Well, the shortages are coming. You can be sure of that. And if you're putting your faith in these politicians, if you live in Europe, you're going to be very disappointed because they're not going to be able to alleviate these shortages. They're making the wrong decisions, assuming they even know what they're doing. The Aluminum Industrial Association said in response, "We support the energy crisis proposals that complement the adopted council regulations, but we need stronger measures to immediately alleviate the impact of gas prices on energy-intensive industries to maintain a thriving and sustainable EU industrial base." Again, the problem isn't the high prices. You can lower those prices. All that's going to lead to, if they institute price controls, which wouldn't surprise me at all that's going to do is lead to shortages. Then there won't be any gas available because people won't be able to afford to bring it to market. European Aluminum, together with the Ceramics, Fertilizer, and Steel Association, said the current manufacturing crisis and closures in Europe are quickly resulting in another crisis: the surge of lower-cost imports into Europe, capturing market share and prolonging, quote, temporary closures. We've talked about this before when some of these companies have said, we're going to shut down for a few months because of these high energy prices. Well, is anybody sure they're going to open back up again? I don't think so. Not in most cases. In Germany, Europe's biggest economy, the automotive industry thinks that the massive increase in energy cost is currently the greatest challenge, a survey showed last month. As a result of the extremely high energy costs, there are already production restrictions in 10% of the companies, while another third discuss production restrictions. It is therefore not surprising that 85% of companies consider Germany as an internationally uncompetitive location in terms of energy prices and security of energy supply. Europe's energy crisis and soaring energy costs for the industry could result in Europe-based auto manufacturers losing up to 1 million units of production per quarter between this quarter and the end of 2023. Guys, this is shutting down the European economy. It says energy-intensive industry in the EU is facing an existential crisis. If European political leaders and policymakers do not take drastic actions in the coming weeks and months to reduce the cost of energy, there they are, focusing on the wrong problem again. For energy-intensive companies, the damage will be irreparable and will result in a significant loss of jobs in Europe. Demand reduction is forcing industry across Europe to idle and will raise input costs to levels that make European industry uncompetitive. This may persist for several years, causing global supply chains to move away from Europe. And I would say not only will it cause the global supply chains to move away from Europe, but it will crush the European economy, and the crushing of the European economy will have a ripple effect throughout the entire global economy, and we will have a catastrophic global financial crisis. No doubt about it. And the only way they can fix this is to produce more energy, and they need to do it now. And I don't see how they can do it now. If they don't do this now, 85% of companies surveyed said Germany's uncompetitive. That means you're looking at Europe going back to early 19th century living standards. That's what that means. And in case anybody doesn't understand what we're talking about, the severity of this crisis, because we've talked about it again and again, and I know the mainstream media doesn't talk about this the way I do. But in case you don't understand it, let's take a look at this story. This says 4 German companies, all 125 plus years old, declared insolvent in 24 hours. Within a 24-hour period, German manufacturing has been rocked by 4 separate century-old companies declaring insolvency as energy cost and inflation continue to spiral across Europe. Germany has the biggest economy in the European Union, with a GDP of over 3.57 trillion euros in 2021. Its position as the 4th largest economy in the world is based on exports of high-quality manufactured goods, including vehicle construction, electrical industry, engineering, and chemical industry. Yesterday, German media reported that construction company Wolf Hoek, and I can't read the rest of that. Sorry for all you people in Germany right there. That'll twist my tongue trying to read that out. But this construction company has been forced to declare itself insolvent, unable to pay its debts amid the ongoing crisis. This is particularly notable as the company in question is over 125 years old. According to German news outlet Focus.de, the company's managing director, Martin Hermann, cited the skyrocketing price of raw materials such as wood, plastic, and steel due to inflation and massive staff shortages due to the lockdown as the results for the company's financial woes. On the same day, German sweet manufacturer Bodetta, famous in Germany for its eucalyptus menthol sweets, has also filed for bankruptcy. The company was 130 years old. A company spokesman said they could no longer keep up with rising energy costs, increased prices of vital raw materials such as sugar, and also an increase in minimum wage which took effect in Germany from October 1st. Meanwhile, German car component supplier Borgers, which is 156 years old, has also been declared insolvent. The company employs 6,000 people and supplies textile components to the automotive industry. While the company was struggling financially in recent years regardless, the hike in energy costs, the price of raw materials, and supply chain issues appear to have been the straw that broke the camel's back. At the same time, German soap manufacturer Kappas also filed for bankruptcy, citing the increased cost of raw materials and energy as the reason. The company is a whopping 174 years old, having existed since 1848, around the time of the Irish potato famine. It was once the largest soap manufacturer in Western Europe. I hope you understand from these stories, it helps illustrate some of these concepts we've been talking about of how severe of a crisis this is. The youngest of these companies dates back to 1897. That's the youngest, right? So that means all of these companies were around, some of them before there was a Germany. and some of these, all of these companies were around when Bismarck was a player on the European scene and the Kaiser ruled Germany. They survived World War I. They survived the Weimar Germany hyperinflation. They survived the Great Depression. They survived the rise of Hitler. They survived World War II and the complete destruction of Europe. And they survived everything since. So they survived all of those events. But now, 4 of them that survived all those events go insolvent in 24 hours. That should tell you what a big deal this energy crisis in Europe is and how catastrophic it is. Let's take a look, and just in case it hasn't seeped through, maybe this tweet from Michael Schellenberger will help illustrate again. By just putting it in bullet points, it says deindustrialization in Europe, fertilizer down 70%, aluminum down 50%, silicon down 27%, steel down 17%, paper and packaging down 15%, 100% of zinc smelters shut or curtailed, Total chemical industry set to decline 40%. Guys, this is a catastrophe. We're going into this winter, and there's going to be a massive energy shortfall in Europe. Today, the worry from these industry insiders and the politicians is the high prices. As we go on a couple of months into the future, the worry is going to be availability. The energy is not going to be there. People are going to be freezing. They're going to be unemployed. Industries are going to be shut down. There's going to be shortages of basic materials and critical supplies. And people are going to be angry, and they're going to be out in the streets. And all of this sets the stage for someone to come along, the environment that we have here, to come along and promise the answers. Is this setting the stage for the rise of the Antichrist? That remains to be seen. I think it is, even if that's still sometime in the future. You can't shut off your energy supply and expect to have a functioning modern economy. It's absolutely critical to have the free flow of inexpensive energy to operate a modern economy. And guys, it ain't getting better because we read this story. It's from Yahoo News. It says Europe's diesel stockpiles set to hit record low without Russia. So this is separate from the natural gas problem, but it's all part of this energy crisis. It says inventories of diesel, the fuel that powers vast parts of the European economy, are forecast to plummet this winter as supplies from Russia are cut off. The amount of diesel-type fuel stored in northwestern Europe will sink to 210.4 million barrels in February, the lowest it has been since at least 2011. That's the month that European Union sanctions on seaborne deliveries of refined petroleum products from Russia, currently the region's single biggest external diesel supplier, come into play. So guys, if Europe runs out of diesel, that means all the trucks shut down. That means all the farm equipment shuts down. It means their economy completely shuts down. This is a big deal, and it's not going to be pretty. And while there are those out there that will say, oh, no, this is nothing to worry about, the United States will supply them with the diesel. Well, hold that thought, because we had this tweet here from Jesse Felder. It says, currently, the United States has just 106 million barrels of diesel and heating oil in commercial stocks. The last time inventories were that low in mid-October was 1951. Typically, inventories should be 30% higher this time of year. So what's going on here? Well, we've had this push for green energy in both the European Union and the United States, and you've had people pushing back against refineries. And so the refinery capacity is not there. So you also, you have these problems with Russia and the sanctions, but there's a whole bunch of problems built on these bad policies that were put in place for years and years and years, and now these bad policies are bearing bad fruit, and we're seeing the results of that. It's not going to be a good year ahead if you're living in Europe. It's not really going to, and as I said, all of this is going to affect the entire world. So, one more story that I want to talk about. This is something that I encountered a couple of days ago. This is from Monkey. Many of you are probably familiar with Monkey and watch his show already. If not, I encourage you to go over there and check this out. This is a video he did, I believe, Wednesday night. It's called Big Chess Move Coming. Thought about putting this at the beginning of the video, and then I thought, well, I'll put it at the end because I'm hopeful that what he has observed turns out to be nothing in the end. But in case it doesn't, I don't want you to not be informed of what may be coming. So again, he can explain it a whole lot better than I can, but I encourage you to go watch this video. I'll put the link down in the description. Then there was a follow-up video done yesterday where Monkey was a guest with James Cadiz on his channel. They do this every Thursday at 2. Great show. They have some follow-up comments on that video. I encourage you to go watch these. I think this impacts the entire world, but the United States in particular. If you live in the United States, you want to be aware of the possibility of what may be about or not about to happen in the next 2 to 3 week time frame. But I thought this was very interesting, so I recommend highly that you go watch both of these videos. Again, I'll put the link down in the description so you can easily click on those and go watch those. So guys, what do you think about all this stuff? I know it sounds like bad news, but again, the good news is Jesus is coming back. Jesus, while we were still sinners, died on the cross for our sins so that we could be forgiven and have eternal life. That's the great news. None of this bad news that's in the headlines can take that away from us. So go forward with joy and hope. Guys, make sure to like and share this. And God willing, I'll see you on Monday. Bye. If you want to learn more about the end times and Bible prophecy, make sure to sign up for my free monthly newsletter and get your copy of my free ebook, 7 Signs of the End Times. Just follow the link in the description to get your free book. Also, make sure to check out all of my books. Just look up Britt on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple iBooks, Google Books, Kobo, or anywhere books are sold. Thanks for watching today, and until next time, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith.